Welcome in, welcome in. Week 1 in the books, folks. Whew, what a fun time that was over the weekend. Lots of action all over the place. Anthony, how you doing, man?
Oh, it's a crazy league, but God, you gotta love football, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
many exciting endings, so many close games. I think they said it was a record 6 games within 3 points. We had a tie, obviously. I mean, all the
I
craziest
know,
stuff could
tie
happen.
right out the gate.
A win in
Ugh.
the last second of overtime. I mean, you can't ask for more action than what we got in football this week. All the matchups of people going against their former teams and the drama and the Super Bowl. It started with the Super Bowl champs against the Super Bowl favorites. I mean, just this entire week, the NFL, applaud to you. It was a great
Yes.
job making the schedule for week 1. Way to get everybody excited again. Competitive again. It's only 1 week, but man, we got a lot to talk about and a lot to
Yeah,
get
and I've just
into.
touched briefly on the week 2 matchups. So is week 1 too hyped and now we're going to be really disappointed for week 2?
Maybe,
Is that how it's
but
gonna
I
work?
think this is more like a moving train. The NFL got that train moving like a bullet out of the gate. So everybody's going to be tuned into week 2 just to see what happens, even though it might not be as intense with the divisional matchups and everything else that
Right.
was
And we got
storylines for week 1.
Chargers Chiefs Thursday night, so I can't even get past that yet because that game is going to be
Super
phenomenal.
exciting.
You already got me hooked, NFL. They're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome into the new show, Touchback Tuesday, where we touch base on everything that happened over the weekend. We get you the most read there. Click the QR code on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, check the bio. We have our link tree. You can find out where we are in social media, all the platforms for our podcast. You know, if you have a preference, some people like Apple, some people like Spotify. I am a Spotify guy myself.
Mhm.
So for all
I'm
that
still
information, click the QR code or click the link in the bio. And let's get right into it here. Injuries.
Tough.
Right, this is a tough thing for week 1 every single year. Teams get ruined. You know, their aspirations get, ruined right out the gate. This happens, it seems like, every year. Just to start out here, Elijah Mitchell sprained MCL for the 49ers. He's a starting running back.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I mean, this is a tough loss for them because they're a team who relies on running the ball a lot, and he was going to be the feature guy in this run game this season. And without him, luckily, they still have 3-4 other guys who are capable of running the ball, plus their quarterback. So I trust that the run game will still be okay in for the 49ers, but that means they still lost their starting guy who was going to get the majority of the carries. Tough for fantasy football owners too, obviously, but I expect Jeff Wilson is going to pick up the slack in terms of becoming the primary back, but expect them to still spread the ball out a lot when it comes to running the ball. Unless one of these guys really emerges out of nowhere, they're still just going to be by committee kind of back there. And these guys have to step it up. And obviously they trusted him enough to get to the 53, and they were going to get touches one way or another. Now those numbers are just going up, and there's a little bit more expectation with it for the backups.
Right. And it seems like everybody on that team can run the ball, so I think they'll make up for it there.
Mm-hmm.
Debo Samuel, he's half
Right.
running back. The quarterback's half running back.
Yep.
George Kittle comes back, give him a few carries.
Yeah, you even mentioned Ray McLeod on this team, right? Like he's a return guy, but he
can probably run.
He could do it, right?
A sweep here and there, right? Schefter reports Elijah Mitchell expected to be sidelined 2 months with a sprained MCL.
Wow, that's rough.
2 months. That's probably 8 weeks, right?
Yep, 8 weeks is a regular season. Depending on when their bye is, that can be pretty rough.
Yeah, for a team like that who relies on the run so much, especially with a young quarterback, that could be a setback for them. But I think I trust Kyle Shanahan. You know, and like I said, the variety of running backs that they have, I expect them to keep competing, keep running the ball. The other ones around the league, Chris Godwin, hamstring injury. The Buccaneers are absolutely stacked at receiver.
Right.
No setbacks here. They've been through this before with receiver injuries. They still got Mike Evans. You got Julio Jones, who looked very, very good in the Sunday night game.
Yes.
Various others. Is it Perryman?
I mean, we're going to talk about another team, Dallas, in a minute here, but I think that Tampa Bay has done things the right way, right? They say, oh, we've dealt with injuries before. We need to have depth at this position because we rely on this position for our offense. Whereas the Cowboys kind of did not have the backups that they needed. And when their wide receivers are injured, the guys coming up are scrubs, guys we've never heard of before, and expecting them to emerge and become starting caliber on an elite offense is very difficult. So
Right.
Tampa Bay has done this well, that they can buffer and say, okay, it's okay if you're out for a couple weeks. Hey, next guy gets hurt. Hey, it's okay if you're gone for a couple weeks. We got 3 guys that can fill in and make up for it, right? Perriman back getting reps with them in the game due to injuries and things. But, Tampa Bay is built for this. They will be just fine.
Couple things there, a lot to unpack right there. But, I mean, you got to be able to recruit people, right? Good teams normally are deeper because people want to play for you, right? That's kind of Tampa Bay's case. Everybody wants to play with Tom Brady, so your good players will re-sign. Players like Julio Jones are okay with being third in the depth chart, whereas if they go to a different team, maybe that's not the case. But, I mean, that's why the Tampa Bay is deeper. Dallas, it seems like they had injuries. They didn't really address it in the offseason. A lot of teams don't even have draft picks. So that's a tough one. It's really, I think it's hard to keep depth on a team, right? So that's something to follow moving forward. But, yeah, Tampa is certainly one of the deeper teams. Kyler Fuller for the Ravens, cornerback, ACL injury. Derek Barnett for the Eagles, season-ending ACL injury. Are we ever going to get this ACL issue taken care of?
Yeah,
it seems like every year star players are tearing their ACL and they're out for so long.
In the NFL, you rely so much on your knees, your legs, right? No matter what position you play, you're running constantly in this game, right? Or you're pushing, you're colliding, you're going head to head, and all of that leads to issues with the knees. So I don't think this is a problem that's going away anytime soon, and it's more about managing it, right? Some teams, a good example is the Buffalo Bills, knock on wood, have found good ways to kind of minimize the impact of injury, even though they had Trey White, right, who had an ACL, by implementing the right kind of health plan, the right kind of rotations, the right kind of equipment, the right kind of prep, right? All of these things play into factors of injuries. And it's unfortunate that, we do see this a bunch in the NFL, and it does seem to be happening more to star guys or starter players. But that is why you need depth on an NFL team. You expect that you're going to have a few of these a year and that you have the guys to make up for it when it happens. So I think those players who are out will be replaced with starting capable ones, the ones who you mentioned that are out for, long-term with ACL or MCL injuries.
Yeah, Ravens are deep in defense.
Exactly.
Kyle Fuller's a great cornerback, but again, they're well coached in Baltimore. Expect them to bounce back. Eagles very deep on the defensive line. Discussed them in our NFC East breakdown. We discussed their depth pretty detail. Yeah, but the ACL. So I read this, and I'm not sure if this is an opinion. It might have been a blog. I don't think it was an official science document or anything, but some people's ACLs are longer and more durable, right? They can stretch more. Some people's ACLs genetically are shorter and more susceptible to rip or tear.
Interesting.
So it's not always the field, not always, how many snaps you play or anything like that. Sometimes it's simply genetics. Right?
Genetics. That's tough. Yeah. And once you have the surgery, theoretically you are better, right? And you are going to come back and you're less susceptible to it again. But you never know, right? It could happen to the other knee, or it could, because now you've had surgery, you're favoring it, and that'll always lead to more injury if you're favoring one side over the other. I think that's the hardest part about rebounding from these injuries and coming back. But we constantly in the NFL, players are able to come back after the necessary time off, usually a year and a half, unfortunately, but still able to come back to 100%, play in this league, start in this league. We're going to see that type of wear and tear with all sorts of injuries, but ACL has been happening a lot, it seems, to certain star players. And once you hear that ACL up, they're out for the year, right? And minimum. That's the part that stinks.
I think the fastest ever was like Cam Akers for the running back for the Rams. He came back in 6 months, but real young guy. I think it was his rookie year.
Adrian Peterson did it too, right? He came back,
6 months.
I think, within, I don't remember if it was 6 months, but he came back really fast from an
Right.
ACL as well.
And I'm sure that's a tear versus a full tear, partial tear, full tear. I'm not really sure. That's about the
Yeah.
extent of
And
my
again,
knowledge right
everybody
there. But
heals differently too. So,
right. It's just very
good on them for
complex.
being quick healers. But
I think the NFL, with all the money they make, they should be able to fix that instantly.
you got to
No.
have the right health plans. Again, it starts with everything.
Complex, right?
Who
You can't
knows?
do it.
You got to get the science people in there and analyze every angle of it to get that best medical attention you can get.
For sure. And the other thing they got to do, now that we're protecting quarterbacks to the maximum, I think concussions are down. The NFL's really done a great job in that arena.
Mhm.
We got to start protecting quarterbacks' thumbs here. Got to figure out how to do that. We get a lot of thumb injuries as well. Dak
Yeah.
Prescott, I think it was a break, right? Broke his thumb,
Yes, broke.
had surgery today. And I think he's out 6 to 8 weeks, they said. So
Yes.
here we go. Dallas, we were high on them in the division breakdown. It was always Philadelphia or Dallas. It was
Mhm.
never. I don't think
Yep.
I think we both picked Philadelphia, but Dallas was right there. We didn't count them
Exactly.
out. Now, I'd say they are completely counted out at this point.
Oh,
Now,
yes.
the only thing that can save them is the Giants and the Commanders, who both won yesterday, mind you,
Yes. Sunday.
stumble
They
at some
both
point.
So, yes, right? Like every other team in this division won. That puts a lot of pressure on Dallas. Now, the reasons, if you go into our divisional breakdown, right, when we talked about Dallas, I brought up two major concerns as to why I picked Philly to win the division. One was the offensive line, lots of changes, lots of question marks, and two was the injuries to wide receiver. And both of those issues are what resulted in Dak Prescott getting injured. Lots of pressure was in his face, trying to get the ball out to these wide receivers. And the pressure was relentless on Dak, and he hit his finger on the helmet a couple times with guys and ultimately broke it, so that pressure got to Dak. But even if they're able to bring somebody in, that's not going to solve their problems. They still got a bad offensive line and, are going to have to deal with questions of what do you do with these wide receivers and what happens if your guys don't get healthy and play long term. So it stinks. We never want to see guys get injured. But Dak missing 6 to 8 weeks, I agree with you. It knocks them down huge pegs in the division, let alone in the NFC. They're pretty much an afterthought. Yeah, after this,
Right. So now
it's
we
tough.
have basically two things to address here now is the offensive line fixable? Because when Dak gets hurt, when he leaves the game, he had a quarterback rating of 47.2. He's
Rough.
14 of 29, 134 yards, one interception. Is it fixed? Is that offense fixable? We talked about CeeDee Lamb, a good player. Probably you got to force feed him the ball, which is difficult in this league. He's targeted 11 times. He only caught 2 in the game, right? And you got to find a way to get Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott involved.
Yes.
Now defenses know that's coming, so it's a big challenge. So you need someone to step up. Looks like Noah Brown and the tight end Schultz are the two people that they're going to be relying on, right? So can they fix the offense? Is the first question I have for you.
It depends on what you mean by fix. I think if their wide receivers get healthy and they bring in the right quarterback, then yes, they can still compete with the Commanders and the Giants. Maybe not so much the Eagles with the backup, but certainly, contend for a wild card in the NFC, which is wide open at this point. So they can. It is fixable. The offensive line needs to step up. You're not bringing anybody more elite than who's there, right? They did sign Peters. He's on the sideline now. Who knows? A couple of weeks until he's ready to play.
Is he 40 years old? Did I read that?
Yes, right. He's
Wow.
40 years old, but
Good
still,
for him.
hey, he can still do it.
He
So
must be on TB12.
can he improve it? I think so. Could he improve the line? Certainly, if he gets in there. But other guys have to step up too. It's not just going to be a one fix, And again, you're not going to find any free agents at this point, or even any trades or anything of offensive linemen that are going to improve the situation you got. Those guys just got to step up, and they got to realize that they're the reason this happened, right? So that team is on notice, and they know it. So hopefully they can fix it, and they will be able to find a way to turn it around. But it's an uphill battle at this point.
For sure. That's a common term. We use it every year, and I believe it to be true, is it's a bounce back league, right? Everyone here is a professional. They got years and years of football.
Mhm.
Coaches are great on every team. Even the worst team in the NFL has great coaching and players, right?
Mm-hmm. And
So
who
I
are they
think
going to bring in, right? That's the
right,
big question. They have a backup quarterback, but they weren't ever relying on him to become the starter. That's for sure. You
right.
see a lot of teams in the league now do that, where they bring in a backup that they know they can rely on to at
Mm.
least bring them to 500 or better,
Right. No
right?
no team plans on losing their starting quarterback.
Exactly.
So that makes it difficult. When it does happen, it seems like season over, right? Cooper Rush, 7 of 13, 64 yards. We've seen flashes from him before.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But he's a relative unknown at the quarterback position, right? You don't know what you're going to get from him.
Mm.
Versus obviously a guy like Dak, who's going to play at a level he's worthy of playing
Right.
at.
Dak is a great quarterback, right? He's above
Exactly.
average. Put him in
So
the Derek Carr category.
yes, exactly. I would as well. And how are you going to find somebody to match that above average play? Probably not. But can you upgrade over what you got now in Rush? Probably. I do think that they're calling a lot of people around the league today to see who's available, right? And to see
Mhm.
what it would take to get somebody who could run this offense and they could have a little more confidence in.
Okay, so I got the list of available free agents
Oh, okay.
here. So
Free agents.
just let me know verbally if you would take them over Cooper Rush. They're gonna
Hmm.
have to sign a backup regardless, but we're looking at who's actually gonna
Right.
play.
Right.
And the first one on the list here is Ryan Fitzpatrick at 39 years old. Can
Oh,
you entice him to come out of retirement? Did have the broken hip.
that would be very interesting if you could get him to come back from that injury if he's stayed in shape and he's ready to go. He would be the type of quarterback that could run this offense and that could deal with a bad offensive line. So I really like that idea, although that's not the first name that came to mind for me because I'm not sure he does want to come back and has stayed in football shape. He certainly didn't seem like the type of guy who, when he retired was like, well, I'm being kicked out of the league. It was more of a decision. So maybe he
Right.
turned it all off. But if he's healthy and ready to go and feels good, I like that match for this team.
Yeah, and if we're gonna call Ryan Fitzpatrick out of retirement, you might as well give a call to Andrew Luck while you're at it. Just leave a
Well,
just leave a voicemail, right? You never
yeah,
know.
that one's been a little longer, and I'm not sure he
But
would come back, yeah,
yeah, it's the
because of
only
the
thing he
health
can save you
reasons.
now. But anyway,
Yeah.
next one on the list, Cam Newton, 33 years old.
Mm, this is a tough one. I like Cam Newton. I've been a Cam Newton fan, but I think I'm gonna go no on this one just
You take
because
Cooper Rush over Cam Newton.
yes, I would
Okay,
rather go with the unknown. I mean, Cam Newton, is he electric? Can he run? Yeah, sure. But we saw that he struggled in New England to throw the ball.
sure.
And sure, he didn't have very good receivers, but what's he going to do with another bad offensive line? I just don't know that he could improve the situation for them
The one thing
with
I like
a bad
about Cam
offensive
though
line.
is you could come up with some unique running
Yes.
schemes, right? Especially with Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott. You could do the Baltimore thing, right?
Hmm.
And you only got to really win. Okay, Dak Prescott's out 6 to 8 weeks. If you could go to 500 in those 8 games, let's say 4-4, you're in a good spot, especially in this weaker division, to make a run when he comes back. So you just got to go survival mode. I like Cam because he's got that personality. People like him. Teammates like him.
Hmm.
Uh, if you're looking for leadership, and I think his unique athleticism
Maybe.
certainly helps, but your passing game's gonna definitely go downhill. But their passing game with their receiving core, a lot of unknowns there, anyways, right?
That's true.
Is Cooper Rush going to be better because they have a somewhat of a passing game? I mean, I'm not sure about that.
Eh,
We've seen flashes from Cooper Rush, so it makes it interesting.
right. So that's why I said no, I wouldn't, because I would risk the unknown with Cooper Rush rather than go with Cam Newton, I think, at this point in his career.
All right, a couple more here. Tim Boyle, previously in Detroit, got cut from the
Hmm.
Lions. I don't know if you
That's
watch Hard
right.
Knocks. That's how I know
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Didn't he sign with? I thought he signed with somebody else, but maybe not. Would they potentially be able to use that quarterback? I don't know. Did he sign with somebody else? I thought he did.
I got him on
But
Spot Track here is available.
well,
Today,
if
but
he's
it
available, he would be a good.
says available, but I also have Cooper Rush on this list, so I don't know how recently this was updated.
Yeah, right. So I mean, he would be a good option as backup, but is he an upgrade over Cooper Rush? I don't know, right? I probably would just stick with what you got again. You signed Rush for a reason, presumably. So you saw something you liked. He has had some, workouts with the team so far. in terms of, building chemistry with the current wide receiving core. So I probably would not go that direction.
Okay, I'm going to run off a couple more here. A.J. McCarron, Mike Glennon, Josh Johnson, Will Greer, Josh Rosen.
Somebody finally give Josh Rosen a shot
And
to
these
start in the
quarterbacks
game?
could be on practice squads. Maybe that's why you're thinking they signed.
Yes,
Which
right.
means they're still available. You can still pull them from a practice squad.
Right, exactly.
Jacob Easton, another one.
There are some guys that I think, Easton, again, hasn't been given a chance. You could take him. You could take
Nate Peterman.
any of those guys. Nate Peterman. I don't think they go that direction. But again, in that front office, you have to assume that they signed Rush as their backup for a reason over all those other guys. So they already believe he's better option with their team than some of those other guys.
Good point.
I think that trading for a backup who's currently on a roster would be a better option than going for one of those guys.
So trading? Okay, so
either way, you got to pick up a quarterback, though, right? So one of those guys could get poached. Yeah. One of the guys you named could get poached as the new backup because they only went with 2 QBs. So now they're going to have another one come into the roster.
Okay, so how about Jimmy Garoppolo for a trade?
That's been the big name floated around, right? Can they swing that trade and get Jimmy Garoppolo from the 49ers? I think it's going to cost them if they want to do that because Jimmy G does still bring value to 49ers. And they're not, it's still not division, but conference rival. It's going to cost them, and I don't think they can afford it at this point, both in salary cap and in whatever you have to give for compensation.
You're going to give up a lot for a guy like Jimmy, and he's going to come in, and then Dak gets the job back. Dak just signed his contract long-term last year.
Yeah.
So it just creates confusion.
Well, but you do know Jimmy G's a free agent at the end of the year. So that's a good thing. And Jimmy G would have the option. I think he has a no-trade clause. So, yeah, he would have the option to come to Dallas. But if he can start, I think he would take that option for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if I'm them, I'm in survival mode until Dak gets back. That's the plan. I'm not trying to create a distraction here. I would pass on Jimmy if I was them. Nick Foles, Tyler Huntley with Baltimore. And he showed some flashes, too, last year.
That's another guy that I don't think Baltimore is going to let go of Huntley.
Right. It's a lot of uncertainty with Lamar Jackson. Can he stay healthy? So that's an insurance policy. Nick Foles in Indy, backing up Matt Ryan. He knows the system there, right? Was with Frank Reich in Philly. Yeah. So I think he's also insurance just in case Matt Ryan doesn't work out. And maybe he helps them in the room and stuff like that, pick up the offense.
I could see that working out for Dallas if they made a trade for Nick Foles.
Okay. The one you mentioned earlier, Andy Dalton. I would say Garner Minshew, but he's with the Eagles.
Yeah.
Actually, they have. We just don't see a lot of
3 good options within the Tyrod Taylor is in the Giants. I don't
Tyler
think that's
Heineke,
a great option. Tyler Heineke, he was a starter, right, for the Washington Commanders.
They'd be good.
And, the Eagles. So that's 3 division rivals who we do not expect to make trades with Dallas at any point. And they all have good backups that could be had.
It also shows you how much uncertainty there is in that division at quarterback, right?
Got to have some.
They got lots of insurance.
Plans. Yes.
Andy Dalton with the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston came out, played well.
Andy Dalton, we've seen him in Dallas before. I just don't know that they were willing. They saw the results of that. So I don't think they want to go back to that, even though this team is different than that one, obviously. But, yeah, I don't know that that's the direction they would go either.
Okay, and last one here, Drew Lock.
He couldn't even win his own quarterback battle against Geno Smith, so I doubt that one too. Drew Lock is not the quality player that Dallas wants to get. You just stick with Cooper Rush at that point and see what you got in him.
Yeah, you're going to have to find a backup. I know. I like the idea of Sam Darnold as well, but he's injured right now.
That could be an intriguing one if he were healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny how Sam Darnold's kind of intriguing as a backup. Josh Rosen isn't even considered at this point. It's crazy how time works. All right, last injury that we want to talk about, TJ Watt for Pittsburgh. Adam Schefter reporting getting a third opinion on the pec. Looks like not sure what pec is. You might know as being a scientist. Torn pec.
It's pectoral muscle. That's your chest muscle. That's right on your
doesn't sound good.
Front breast here between your shoulder and your chest. Yeah, your abdomen, right? So up there, yeah, definitely not good. And it does say here, if doctors determine that he needs surgery, his season would likely be over. If he doesn't need surgery, he could return in 6 weeks. So the obvious assumption here is when it says he's going to get a third opinion, the first two said you need surgery. So that's
Yeah.
not good, right?
Yeah, so
That's
potentially
definitely
out
not
for
good.
this season. Not good. Yeah.
Definitely not a good news for them. So I think they are now trying to say, well, is there any way we could avoid the surgery? And I don't know that they're going to find a doctor to do that. So it looks like he's going to be out for the year. And even if he's not, being out for 6 weeks, the impact and the importance of TJ Watt cannot be understated for that Pittsburgh team.
Oh, so
He is the
true.
reigning defensive player of the year
Yes.
for a reason. He has led in sacks for a reason. He is a dominant player. That defense is good. There's no doubt about it. There's guys who can pick up the slack. They can still compete, but they cannot rely on their defense as much as they have without TJ Watt out there. And that's an unfortunate loss for them, regardless if he's out 6 weeks or the entire season. That's not what you want to see from somebody who's that elite.
And in the Bengals game, phenomenal football game, by the way, but 6 tackles for TJ Watt, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 2 pass deflections. And that's a lot, right?
And then you saw him come off the field. If you were watching the game, he came off the field and he was holding it like this, and you knew it was bad because he kept pointing to his chest.
I thought it was a rib, but yeah.
It looked bad. So that's unfortunate for sure.
It's unfortunate. Really, like when the defense, I think will be fine, but I mean, TJ Watt attracts so much attention from offenses and protection schemes. You can't put him one-on-one or he'll disrupt your entire offense, right? We saw that with Cincinnati. So that's what hurts is now the other guys are going to have to work a little harder. The attention will go elsewhere, but there's plenty of places to place your attention on this Pittsburgh defense. Cameron Hayward right in the middle. They got Miles Jack now. You know, they have so many great players that I think they will be okay. But again, huge blow for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he's out for the season, that's bad for viewers as well, like you and I, because he is a phenomenal player and very fun to watch. All right, week 1's in the books. Which teams are you high on right now after week 1? You come in with hype, and then some of them confirm, yep, okay, they're good. But then some are like, okay, well, you weren't as good as I thought. Which teams do you look really good?
There's a few here for me. I think the Buffalo Bills, I know it sounds weird because we're Bills fans. Maybe there's bias. I don't think there is. Everybody in my life right now who's Dolphins fans, I'm talking Giants fans, everybody says the Bills look like the best team in football already from week 1. And I thought the same thing watching games on Sunday. It was sloppy watching a lot of them start out. The Bills did not start out sloppy. They came to play on Thursday night. So, I mean, I think there's tiers right now, and the Bills are number 1 alone by themselves. And then there's a few other teams who have looked good.
Okay.
So the Bills came out and put teams on notice. Obviously, Kansas City came out and did their thing. You know, they scored 5 touchdowns. Pat Mahomes was Pat Mahomes. However, I'm not that high on the Cardinals. And so, especially on defense. So I don't look at that as dominant a win as what the Bills did against the Super Bowl champion Rams, right? A couple other teams that I'm high on after week 1. The Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, again, another team I picked to go to the Super Bowl. So I've been high on them. Watch the division preview because I had a lot of good things to say about that Minnesota Vikings team. They come out and they make a statement against their division rival, probably their toughest opponent in the Green Bay Packers, right? So you can't have a better start than the Minnesota Vikings just did. So certainly they're a team to talk about when we're going through who left an impact or who I think are some of the good teams. And of course, the Baltimore Ravens. Getting their quarterback back, getting their franchise player back, and playing an inferior team, sure, but doing business. You did what you were expected to do against them. So the Ravens were one that certainly stood out to me as a team that is ready to go and has something to prove. I think those are the most elite for me. I'm looking through to see if there was another NFC team.
Okay, how about the Chargers? AFC
the Chargers...
teams.
No, they did what they had to do. I wouldn't say that they are top for me right now. to me, they did what they had to do. They got beat by the Raiders. Remember that bad
Okay.
taste that was in their mouth. They had to come back and win, and it was impressive, but it wasn't like over the top
Yeah,
or
Justin
something
Herbert looked
came out
impressive to
swinging.
me.
Certainly.
I would put them in the teams that look
Okay.
good because I think the Raiders team is they're a decent team to beat, right? And it was a close game, and Devontae Adams is as advertised. So I mean, I give the Chargers a lot of credit.
All right.
How about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yes and no. Again, I think my expectation was really high for them, and I expected them to score a few more touchdowns in the red zone and not kick as many field goals. So their offense, although they won the game and they won a great game against Dallas, conference opponent, they still could have done more, in my opinion, right? And a lot of these teams that I mentioned pretty much played their hearts out and played more than what was the expected, not just okay, you met expectation.
To be determined, in other words, meaning
Yes,
you need more
yes.
of a sample size.
Right.
Like, we only
I
have
think
one data point here.
I think they will get better over time. Tampa Bay is going to show why they're an elite team in the NFC. But
They look great to me.
this was just kind of business as usual.
Right. I mean, Brady had a couple mistakes, but I mean, the fact that Julio Jones looked good, looked athletic, healthy. I mean, that tells me a lot because he basically disappeared last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's got me excited for them. All right. Mentioned Kansas City with the 5 touchdowns, and we know Buffalo's in this conversation as well. Top team. They looked phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
They got a tough matchup at Tennessee on Monday night next week, or it's in Buffalo, play in Tennessee. Is Kansas City for real?
I mean, this is a tough question. Yes, right? Like, I don't know what you mean by for real when you're talking about Kansas City. I get it. There's been a lot of questions. There's been a lot of, Tyreek Hill's gone. Again, I'm not high on the Cardinals, so putting up those points on the Cardinals doesn't mean anything more to me. But they still have Pat Mahomes. They still have Travis Kelce. They still are led by one of the best coach, if not the best coach in football. They are a really good team. Yeah, they're still the threat to the Buffalo Bills or to any team trying to contend in the AFC. That's who you think about first, is the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yes, they're for real. Yes, I expect them to continue to put up points and do well. They're going to stumble along the way. They're not imperfect, right? Their defense leaves a lot to be desired. Their offense went up big, which allowed them to take over on defense. That's great. But you're not going to be able to do that against every opponent, especially some of these opponents in your division who are going to be gunning for you. So I think Kansas City will have its bumps and bruises along the way, but they're a legit contender. There's no question about that. What we saw is, again, kind of what you expect from Kansas City. And Pat Mahomes, 5 touchdowns. That's like any other team, we'd be praising them. But here, that's Pat Mahomes. Of course, he got 5 usual,
right?
touchdowns.
They're the villain, right? Everyone's trying to tear them down, and Pat Mahomes had 5 touchdowns again, right? Chris Jones, phenomenal night as well. You already touched on the defense and the kind of the restructure, but yeah, they look as advertised. They played a really great game, and we'll see how much of that is Arizona, how much of that is Kansas City. But again, I don't think there's a slump coming in the near future for Kansas City. How about the Packers? Can they bounce back? They looked frustrated. They looked like they lost their identity. Minnesota, got up early on them, and they kind of had to abandon the running game, which kind of exposed the Packers offense a little. Yes. They may be a one-dimensional team this year.
I think they will, in the words of a wise quarterback, RELAX, right? Relax. That's, Aaron Rodgers, obviously. He said that a few years ago when they started 0-2, I believe. But I agree here with Aaron Rodgers, right? Yes, this is bad. You lost to a division rival. You looked bad. Your defense didn't do what your defense is supposed to do, primarily. The offense, we kind of expected to struggle with these young pieces, and they will build that chemistry. I truly believe they will improve and bring up to the level of play to Aaron Rodgers, right? He's going to make you better. You just have to learn to get there, right? And he's going to get the most out of those guys as the season progresses, as they get those reps in. The defense has to wake up and do its job, because obviously Minnesota walked all over them. And maybe it was because they were on the field so much, but we still need to see more from that Packers defense. And I believe they will bounce back. They do still have a favorable schedule, weaker division opponents than what they just faced. And there'll be options for them to get the momentum going at the right time to get a wild card and make it to the playoffs. But I believe this is still the Vikings' division to win.
Interesting. I do think, the Vikings look like a complete team, but the Packers will figure it out, in my opinion. Again, I think they're having a little identity crisis, but it's a bounce back league. I'll say that 100 times this season. And I do believe in
This
that, though,
week.
that everyone gets motivated. Hey, we suck. We thought we were good, but we suck. We have to hit we can't go out to eat this week, right? We have to practice hard and study, and then you have a good performance, right? So can you sustain that is kind of the big question over a long period of time. Packers play the Bears, Justin Fields, and the Bears Sunday night.
More favorable matchup for that defense, and hopefully the offense can get it going. And like you said, they want to run the ball, and they weren't able to do that a lot because they were down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think they will be able to do that more
right.
effectively versus.
And then when your game plan just goes out the window, everyone panics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems that way anyway. How about Jameis Winston?
Yeah.
Looks pretty good. How far can the Saints go with Jameis Winston?
Very far. I have them making the playoffs, making a run. I think I kept saying that I still think this team has good pieces on it. When you have Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, could you ask for a better running back wide receiver tandem when they're healthy and effective? And they both were in this game, although Alvin Kamara a little knocked up, I think, after this one. So questions there, but Jameis Winston did what he had to do. They were down big, and he slowly led them back. He didn't get flustered. He said, we're still in this. He put the team in a position to win, and they got the W. And that's what matters for this Saints team. That's what they need to do throughout the year in order to get to the playoffs.
Right. Last 3 drives in the fourth quarter for the Saints. Touchdown, field goal. Last 4 drives, because they had one at the end, Atlanta. Field goal, punt, end of game.
Missed field goal, yeah.
Yeah, missed field goal. So
Tough
with 19 seconds to go, it was just like a 63-yarder. Odds are very low anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game, Atlanta had this game in control most of the day. And Jameis believed. Jameis came back, didn't make mistakes.
Yep.
That's what you want to see from Jameis Winston. I know a lot of fans, a lot of people have questions. We'll talk about this 100 times this year as well. Are we going to get 30 interception Jameis, or has he matured, right? Season gets cut short last year. So I have a lot of faith in Jameis Winston. This guy was a number 1 overall pick. I think he can take them as far as the team can take them, right? If the defense plays well, if they can develop some sort of running game, and Michael Thomas back in the mix, Alvin Kamara obviously still there. I think they can. I have Tampa winning the division, but I think they could be a wild card and maybe win a playoff game with Jameis. All right. Let's move on to the next one here. Last conversation before we get into our next exercise. The way too soon top draft pick candidates. Because I think this got stirred up a little bit, as it normally does, right? You have a team in mind or two. For me, maybe Houston, that you think this could.
I said
they're
they
get
were
a quarterback
better
next year, and they'll have the number 1 pick. But I think Houston can win some games this year.
I told you. Yeah, I think they will too. I think they'll get 5 wins.
Who's your 2 teams that are candidates for number 1 pick?
I think that health plays into this right now, right? So, for example, a team like the Jets, right? I expected them to be on the bottom, toward the bottom. But now when you're starting Joe Flacco instead of your young guy who's getting reps and maybe building chemistry, you kind of feel like you're stalled. You can't move forward when Joe Flacco's your quarterback with this team. They've also been dealing with a lot of other injuries to top guys. And again, you can't kind of move forward. So while the rest of the league keeps chugging along, the Jets are stuck, and that's going to leave them toward the bottom of the pecking order. I think another team like that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are building in the right direction now. I think they have the right coaching staff in place, the right momentum. But the fact of the matter is they have to be good enough to win games, and I'm not confident, and I'm not seeing that yet. I don't care how much money you spent in free agency. Your team isn't winning, and they haven't shown us they can win yet. So far, they have to be one of my options for getting the first overall pick again.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I think Detroit, because I just haven't seen it from Jared Goff. He's driving me nuts. I want him to succeed. I liked him coming in the draft. I mean, guy can make all the throws, just can't move around a lot, right? So, but just hasn't gelled, right? Picked it up a little bit late in the game. I do like Dan Campbell as a coach. He'll will you to run through the wall a few times, but if you don't have good quarterback play, you got no shot. I think the Lions, because of that, are back in the top 5, right? We saw Jared Goff struggled early last season, started to pick it up late in the year, and now we see struggles early in this game, picks it up late in the game. We need consistency for the Lions to stay out of that top 5.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll be competitive in some of these divisional games too. We saw them come back versus the Eagles. I'd say the other ones that I'd give honorary mentions to, Seattle has been in the conversation all year since they lost Russell Wilson, really, and the Atlanta Falcons, after blowing that big lead, you're going to be in the conversation as well for first overall pick, I think.
Yeah, and I tend to lean towards Chicago a little bit because although we are seeing some, progression from Justin Fields, I'm just not sure what kind of weapons they got there.
Agree.
And the
Came up with the win week 1,
right.
but is it going to carry
there's
over?
A broken relationship between the star defensive player Roquan Smith. Hopefully that's solved. They can win a lot more games with him happy, right, versus
Certainly
not happy. So I think the Bears are in that conversation as well. But again, the quarterback is capable of carrying them. If we start to see some stuff from Justin Fields, that won't be the case anymore, right? I think they can win some games because he's built for today's NFL, right? The guy's fast, big arm. Just want to see him, get that consistency, start picking things up. All right, we're going to get into a little exercise called starter, backup, release. I'm going to give you 3 options. One's the starter, one's the backup on your team, and you got to cut one. Going to cue some music for this. What are you feeling? A little rock? We always do rock.
Go. Hey, that's all right. Tune it up, right?
We always do rock.
Get me in the competitive mood.
All right, Anthony, here we go. First one up, Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, or Josh Allen, the top quarterbacks in the league.
Yes. Oh, I got to release one of these guys? Are you kidding me? Bias alert, I'm starting Josh Allen. I will admit that, right? I mean, even right now, though, I think the league is momentum-wise looking more at Josh Allen. But how can you go over the model of consistency in Pat Mahomes? So Josh Allen's my starter. Pat Mahomes is on the bench, and I'm cutting Justin Herbert. That's insane right there to even have those words come out of my mouth. But certainly I think that reflects where these 3 stand right now.
Interesting, though, because I think Justin Herbert and Josh Allen are more similar players.
True.
So if you're going to build a team, Josh Allen starter, Herbert could be the same guy, right?
I'm not cutting Pat Mahomes. Sorry, can't do it.
all right. Let's degrade a little bit here. Next one, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, or Ryan Tannehill.
Now you've made it difficult, right? I have to start one of these guys, right? So it's tough because it's really situational with each of these guys. So I'm actually going to take as my starter Ryan Tannehill. He's still a good starter in the league.
I did not expect that.
You know what you're going to get from him, right? You know what you're going to get from him. I think I'm going to have Carson Wentz as my backup. Again, I think he has capability still. And, he showed some upside. Therefore, I'm cutting Matt Ryan probably just because of his age at this point. If it's 5-10 years ago, Matt Ryan, heck yeah, I'm taking him as my starter. But so I'm starting Ryan Tannehill, benching Carson Wentz, and then cutting Matt Ryan. Sorry,
wow.
Matt Ryan.
Yeah, different than mine. I would go Matt Ryan starter, Carson Wentz backup, Ryan Tannehill gets cut.
Oh, completely different. Yeah.
I just think Carson Wentz, he has all the tools, just, he goes off track a little bit. I'm okay with that. Ryan Tannehill, I'm not sure can win it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have my questions about all of these guys.
Fair.
That's why they're together on this list.
All right, let's go to young mobile quarterbacks. Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, or Marcus Mariota.
Oh, this one also pretty difficult when you look at it. Daniel Jones had a pretty good game, but is he the long-term guy? I don't think so. So because of that, I'm starting Justin Fields just because he's younger. I think he's got a lot more to show. As my backup, I want Marcus Mariota, though. I want somebody who's a little more, what you're getting out of this guy. And so therefore, I'm cutting Daniel Jones. Giants fans are going to kill me for that because I have been saying that Daniel Jones has been doing decent, and would be decent, but not great. And I think Justin Fields has the potential to be great. And when I'm in that situation, I want a stable veteran like Mariota as my backup.
Okay, well said. I mean, if Mariota had a little more arm strength, I would probably take him as a starter, but I would go Justin Fields and Marcus Mariota and cut Daniel Jones as well. Just not sure about Daniel Jones. I like Marcus Mariota's game. Just concerned about the arm strength a little bit. All right, let's get outside of football now.
No.
Best shows. One's a starter, one's a backup, and you got to release one. Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime, House of Dragons, or Better Call Saul.
Wow, I like all of these shows. I have actually not started watching the new Lord of the Rings TV show. I have not, but it's Lord of the Rings.
I watched one episode. It's pretty good.
Can't be
I thought it
bad,
was pretty
right?
good.
I have started watching House of Dragons, and I love it. I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and I'm intrigued. I'm stuck to every episode so far. And Better Call Saul is, like, for me, an underrated show, even though a lot of people talk about.
Did you watch
Man,
the
this is a
last
tough
season?
one.
Did you see the final episode?
I
of
did
Better Call
not see
Saul?
the final episode of the final season.
That'll
yet.
change your opinion, I think.
Oh, it didn't end well. I hate shows that don't end well.
No, it's a very, very well written. You just get really engaged.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's why.
If you saw Breaking Bad, it's like that. You're so engaged in the last few episodes. Some of the best shows I've seen.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get murdered for this. I know it. So I'm going actually to start Better Call Saul because I know that one is. I've got 5 seasons under my belt and I love it.
Loves the darkness. Okay.
This is really tough, but only because I believe in the characters and the development. I'm gonna go Lord of the Rings on the bench and cut House of Dragons. Even though I love House of Dragons.
So
I'm
basically,
in it.
You haven't even scouted Lord of the Rings, but you're gonna put them on the bench over House of Dragons.
Yes, because of the reputation. Even though I love House of Dragons. So far.
All right, interesting. I have not seen House of Dragons, so that makes it easy for me. I've only seen one episode of Lord of the Rings, so I go Better Call Saul, Lord of the Rings, and then release House of Dragons.
House of Dragons is everything you expect from Game of Thrones, basically.
Also, my wife doesn't like Game of Thrones, so I have to. Yeah, that's I go solo on that one.
Well.
So
me too. Kathy also does not watch Game of Thrones.
Interesting. All right, so last one of the night to go with your Better Call Saul: pizza, subs, or Chinese food.
Oh man,
what kind of person are you?
Oh man, pizza is. I have to start pizza. There's no question here.
True New Yorker.
You got to go pizza as long as it's good pizza. Don't give me no dang Papa or whatever other place. I don't want. Box pizza from these joints that are all over the place. Give me the local pizzas, the good pizzas, and I'm starting pizza all day. So then, as a backup, I think I have to go Chinese food because no matter where you are in the world, you get good Chinese food, right? There's always good Chinese food. So I can't believe I'm a sub guy, but I'm cutting subs again. This is like the Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Patty Mahomes for me. Pizza, Chinese food on the bench, and cutting subs.
Yeah, you got to fire the scouting department, start over because subs is number one. Subs starts on my list.
Wow.
Healthy.
Yes.
And good. And so many different varieties, right? Different breads, different meats. You can go from roast beef to turkey. Like the versatility with that. Pizza as my backup because I never get sick of pizza ever. Even if it's bad pizza, it still tastes good to me.
Still pizza.
But Chinese food, when you get bad Chinese food, it's real bad, right? And again, like you said, not a lot of variety. I can get the Chinese food here in upstate New York. I can go to Denver, and it's the same exact Chinese food. And I'm very suspicious about that. How does that work? I think I got a lot of questions there. So I release Chinese food. Seems to be a centralized supplier or something. But pizza, it's different everywhere.
Kathy might divorce me if I cut Chinese food, by the way.
Yeah. Chinese food's the same everywhere, though. It's weird. It's kind of weird. Anyway, thanks for tuning in with us on the Touchback Tuesday. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for all your latest reactions from week 1. We're headed into week 2. We'll give you the reactions next week. Click the QR code on the screen if you're watching us. That's where you can find all of our links to all the major platforms, all our social media. No pictures of Anthony on there. There's no best bets in there yet. We'll work on that later. And then if you are listening, click the link in the bio. That'll bring you to the same exact location, and you can find us all over the internet. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you Thursday of this week to get you ready for week 2.
Toss your hat in the ring.